Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us in this partly sunny day in Brussels. So give it up for Brussels and to all of you for being here this morning. My name is Pia BEHMUARAS, and I'm joined by the incredible Alice McCutcheon today. And we're going to be talking about the age-old question of extended reality and its adoption. So, clicked one too many. So today's talk is all about the psychology of how outsiders perceive extended reality, especially with the form factor that we have today. And Alice and I have been designing extended reality applications for a while, and we have a lot of chances to interact with first-time users. So we're going to walk you through a little bit of our insights, talk to you about what you can do as designers and developers, and as well how the perception on social media and out on the street could change. So, hello everyone, my name is Pia BEHMUARAS. I'm also known as the traveling extended reality designer. I had a short period of time where I was a digital nomad, traveling all around the world with my XR headset. I design applications for therapy, for education, for social impact, and right now I'm doing that through local events in Barcelona. I'm based in Barcelona now. I'm doing a lot of marketing. I'm doing immersive experiences and installations. And I'm also a multimedia artist. I am also the founder of the Immersive Creators Meetup. And I started this meetup series in New York City when I was living there. And later, when I was traveling the world, I kept doing these events. These are community events that bring people together from all around the world, from different sectors of XR specifically. So I bring together academia, we have folks in enterprise, we have folks who are still studying, we have folks who are building, artists, creators. And the goal of these meetups is to expose the general public, and especially artists and creators, to immersive media, break down the stigma, break down the fear that they might have around using this technology, and make incredible connections. So here are some photos from our previous events. We've done a lot of events in Barcelona at various extended reality venues. I see some familiar faces from Barcelona, so thanks so much for coming out. And I'm also building my own studio right now, which is called Pia XR. It's spelled in Greek, though, so it's P-O-E-I-A. And in the studio, we're creating AI and XR-driven experiences all around wellness, immersive experiences, as well as social impact. So I'll pass it on to Alice.
Hi everyone, my name's Alice. I'm a user experience designer and have been recently working a lot more in XR design. I work for a company called Cambridge Consultants. We're a technology and engineering consultancy, and we work across a lot of different sectors from healthcare, energy industrial, consumer, and ultimately I like looking into how we can create intuitive experiences that are often combined with state-of-the-art technology. So that's not using technology for technology's sake, but it's what are the user pains that we can help with that. And I think one of the interesting bits of my job is that often I'm designing for experiences that don't yet exist, and so that presents a lot of unique challenges. So how did I actually end up in XR? So part of my work is researching into new technologies and seeing the new value that they can bring. And XR is just one of those that kept coming up time and time again. And so we invested internally to build capability in this area. We started testing, building, designing, and seeing the potential that it could have. Outside of work, I also took part in a hackathon earlier this year, the Immersive Insiders Hackathon, where I got to be part of the XR community, and it was a really fun experience, and I think that just really showed the opportunities that there are out there for me.
Thank you, Alice. So today's big question for us and for all of you is, why isn't extended reality where we want it to be? And I want to give you an outsider's lens here. So let's imagine that all of you guys are aliens that just landed on planet Earth, and the first thing you see is this device. What do you think? What does this look like? Is it a gaming device? Is it something from the future? Is it something high-tech? Is it something super low-tech? How about if you saw the inside? Now what do you think? Maybe you're an alien, you've never touched a laptop before, but you're seeing all these widgets. What problem does it solve? What does it do? How does it help you? How do you even interact with this thing? And notice that a lot of people don't even see the inside of the extended reality headset. They just see the form factor. And a lot of people ask the same very question, but I don't get it. what problem does it solve? So they're looking for one single thing that they can solve with an extended reality device. Just like a mobile phone used to solve the problem of being attached to a landline, now you can walk out on the street with it. They're looking for one single problem that the extended reality headset might solve. But the thing is, extended reality is a multi-tool. It's used for so many different use cases. It's used for education, it's used for arts, it's used for therapy, it's used for entertainment, it's used for gaming, for education, productivity, and the list goes on and on and on. So you have to sit down this alien and tell them about all these different use cases, about how you can carry this multi-tool in your bag, and so do so many different things, immerse yourself in different worlds, augment the world around you, and honestly, it's just confusing for first-timers. And one more thing is that XR is often associated with gaming. So would anyone want to carry this technology in their bag? Or these? Because these are essentially the same gaming controller, but split into two pieces. Now, how about this one? I think this is where the perception starts to change just a little bit, because people are more keen on carrying this form factor in their bags and having this as sort of a virtual assistant that combines AI, because now everyone knows what AI can do, and having it together with them in their bag while they walk around the streets. And our headsets have come a really long way, from being super tethered, really hard to use, super chunky, to lightweight. You can actually put it in your bag. And the form factor is becoming more and more fashionable, kind of like our everyday glasses.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that's really nice, that we're now gaining a whole ecosystem of devices that have different use cases. At work, a lot of our demos typically involved some of the larger headsets, and the problem wasn't getting clients through the door, it was getting clients to put the headsets on. They didn't want to get their hair messy, they didn't want to look weird in a professional environment, and so I think having some of the lighter weight options really makes it feel much more approachable. And like I said, they fit different use cases, but I think it's a really positive direction that we've got a variety now to choose from.
And just a very short history lesson. Here's what headsets used to look like. So back in the day, maybe in the 60s to the 90s, using at NASA, we had the Sensorama, which is basically a huge box that was used for entertainment purposes. And then we had multiple different devices that were just a black screen displaying green lines on top of it. So the graphics, the quality of the thing, the portability has really come a very long way. And we have 171 million virtual reality users today. So that's not a very small number. We always say, like, headsets aren't known about enough, headsets aren't talked about enough, not enough people have headsets. I think the real problem is we have a lot of users, but the question is, are these really active users? Because for a lot of people, they just have a headset in their household, but no one ever touches it because they're not sure what to do with it.
Yeah, and I think we are also drawn to tools that solve relatable problems, right? And XR is not just competing with technology, but is competing with some of the very established habits that we now have, the way that we work, the way that we collaborate, the way that we communicate. And so ultimately, I think having a clear purpose and a clear problem that it's trying to solve can really help push the adoption.
But there is a bright side, because I've never had someone put on a headset and think that it was just meh. You know, nothing remarkable, nothing crazy. People are always impressed, whether it be positive or negative, whether it be doing the Richie's Blank experience and feeling terrified, or seeing a beautiful art piece and being super impressed. So I think we need to remember the superpower of XR to really impress people, to invoke a sense of awe, to bring people together, and maybe it is to make people laugh a little bit at the first point, because you do look a little bit funny when you have a headset on and no one else can see what you're seeing. So the next thing is also the psychological safety. So let's say you have a headset on. When you're putting on this device, you see that there's a bunch of cameras installed all over it. And for the person who hasn't been using extended reality for a while, this can pose a serious psychological threat.
Definitely. I think not knowing when you're being recorded, what's happening with that data, it feeds into the wider topic, which is really important for adoption, which is psychological safety. There's a few interesting elements that come in here. So we have the unknown, right? A lot of first-time users don't know what to expect. A lot of the cues that we have in real life, the peripheral cues, the perception of distance, sound, a lot of those senses are actually being replaced in XR. And so people are now having to find a new kind of anchor point to base their references off. And then we have, loss of control. That's one of the worst things that can happen is if someone immerses themselves in an experience and they don't know how to pause it, they don't know how to escape, or they feel like they're not in control of their actions. And then we have other interesting things here, like the kind of sense of perception. You're in and out of two different realities, and so how you're being perceived in the virtual reality and also how you're being perceived to people around you in real life is a really interesting one. And then we've got, cognitive load. It's very easy to be overwhelmed with a huge amount of information, especially like we've mentioned, with the senses being replaced. And so I think showing people the right information at the right time is really important here.
Definitely. But we're not in the era of the Google Glass anymore because that didn't work out. We have a lot more impressive technology like the Vision Pro. And with the Vision Pro, one thing that's really interesting is the fact that when the user is seeing the outside world, the eyes are projected onto the display. So this sort of design and communication language hasn't been adopted by everyone. Not everyone is aware of why there's eyes on the headset, but I think it's a really smart design because a lot of the time when you're in virtual reality and you can see the world around you, you have to sort of audibly disclaim that, hey, I can see you, or hey, I cannot see you when you're in a public space or you're in a large room.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have had this, but when I have been developing or designing with a headset on and someone in the office comes and speaks to me, my first reaction instinctively is to lift up the headset so I can make eye contact. And so I think the really interesting thing about this is it really creates the feedback loop with the person from the inside and immersed in the experience and the person outside. They are no longer wondering, am I interrupting something here? And I think that can make it much more comfortable for both people.
Definitely. And then there's another age-old problem that we need to address, which is comfort, because extended reality headsets right now are not built for long-term usage, especially not the way that they come out of the box. So when you use the headset for a really long time, you can have like a line around your head, you can be sweaty, it can be uncomfortable to later, go out into the world. In fact, I was just using a headset this morning and I had to go to the bathroom and fix my hair. But more than that, there's also the problem of, let's say you didn't have a good night of sleep, or you're having some eye sensitivity. The headset can cause things like nausea, headaches, eye fatigue. So there's a lot of barriers, and it really doesn't help when we're trying to communicate this as a use this everywhere, use this for everything device. I think it should be that we have very high impact and very specific use cases for XR that really justify putting on this headset and maybe experiencing a little bit of discomfort at first.
Absolutely, and I think some of the lighter weight options are starting to target this a little bit more. But I think another element of discomfort that is slightly less spoken about is when there's a bit of a mismatch between what you're seeing. So if there's a tracking lag on the eye tracking, for example, something like that just takes a little bit of extra processing, it might not be enough to stop the experience completely immediately, but it will most likely shorten the time that someone wants to stay in that experience. And then another element I think is important to look at here is that people are much more tolerant of discomfort in private spaces. When we're in a public space, the sensitivity to that is really amplified. And seeing as a large part of adoption in XR is using it publicly and getting used to that, I think it's a really important consideration. Ultimately, I think when the headsets kind of fade away from our focus and that can really help the experience come to the forefront, I think that's when we'll be in a good place.
Definitely. And we also have the marketing standpoint. So for a lot of our XR headsets that are just coming out, we have a lot of excitement within the industry. But for someone who's looking at it from outside the industry, what they're seeing is sometimes an AI-generated image, something super hyper futuristic, and they actually don't know what to use it for. They can't relate to the person in the advertisement. They can't relate to the use case. They can't really see themselves using it. So they never have the instinct to go and purchase one of these.
Exactly, and I think another one of the challenges is that a lot of the wow moments, the kind of uniqueness of these experiences are often flattened in marketing. A lot of the time we're seeing it on a 2D screen ourselves, and so I think that's a real challenge there. I think allowing people to imagine themselves in that experience and understand the value that they can get rather than listing functionality is a really important one here.
And we have steep competition nowadays with the devices that we're carrying in our back pockets. It's really easy to just grab your phone for entertainment and just scroll a few times. And virtual reality is really an experience that can change your perspective, can change your whole worldview. It's really deep. Whereas the experiences that we have scrolling on social media is sort of just instant gratification. It's really quick, it's really easy. But asking someone to start to use a virtual reality headset is almost like asking them to go read a book, because it requires a lot of friction, a lot of setup, and a different mindset.
Definitely. I think, as we've touched on, right, social media is after low effort, low commitment interactions. And I think that's where XR struggles a lot of the time. And maybe that's where, the competition shouldn't necessarily be social media, because ultimately XR is asking for presence, which is quite a different thing. I think either way, though, to kind of jump that barrier and get people to use XR in their free time like they do with social media, we ultimately need to make sure that the value they're getting from that experience is justifying that, is justifying the extra friction that there might be in setting something up beforehand.
All that being said, I think there's also a bright side, because we're seeing a lot of headset adoption across a lot of different sectors. For example, in Barcelona, if I'm going to a new tourist attraction or a new gallery, there's always XR headsets somewhere, and there's always a line, and people are even willing to pay extra to try out that new experience. So there is some awareness, and there is some curiosity around XR headsets. And when I talk about the fact that I work in virtual reality, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I tried that in my local museum. So it's really spreading all over the world. There's a lot of arts and cultural institutions out there that are adopting XR and that are showcasing some of the most interesting use cases that are out there.
Yeah, and I think on the industrial side, we have seen particular value in XR where the risks are high, the environments are complex, and the mistakes are expensive. So in a lot of industrial environments where maybe someone wants to try something out that's quite risky but without the real-world consequences. Or you have, healthcare where professionals have huge amounts of information they have to process. There's a lot of mental juggling, and presenting them the information in a way that's contextual and meaningful can have a lot of power here. But I think ultimately it's not about waiting for XR to be perfect. It's just about, it just has to be better than what they have at the moment. And I think that is true in a lot of cases.
Definitely. And one thing to highlight is that a lot of different technology companies, hardware companies, are coming out with new headsets and new smart glasses. So it's definitely a positive indication that there is a lot of adoption all across different sectors.
So what can we do as designers and developers? First of all, researching the audience, right? Are we designing for first-time users? What are their problems? What are they trying to achieve? It's really important to have that human-centered aspect and keep that at the forefront. Showing people what will happen. As we've mentioned, a lot of people have no idea what to expect, so it could be that just showing them visuals or a video can help set their expectations. Then we have things like reducing the preparation. So the last thing we want is the setting up of the headset being the barrier to them never even entering that experience. So making sure that people are comfortable, they feel ready for that experience is really important. And then, as we've touched on, right, finding a space where people feel psychologically safe, validating any concerns they may have. It is intimidating for a lot of people. And then highlighting where XR can provide that extra value that they can't get above other traditional technologies. And then also giving people non-XR options. So whether that's for accessibility reasons or because someone just doesn't want to put a headset on, it could be using mobile, desktop XR, or even casting, just so they can see the kind of thing that you're seeing.
And I think that a lot of XR applications will become much more scalable and much more profitable if they are tied into a wider ecosystem. So if there's maybe a mobile part, a desktop part, and then at the end, the extended reality is the most premium experience, or maybe it links back into something that you can actually carry in your phone. Because when people enter extended reality, it's almost like entering a dream state. They don't really remember what just happened when they come out because there's so much that was new. So we want to give them something to hold on to and to remember and to act as a reference point. And we do have a lot of success stories. So I've been working in extended reality for the past 5 years with mainly a focus on psychology. And what I've found is that when there's an in-person event, just like United XR, where people come together and they're expecting to put on a headset, it can be really, really easy. In fact, a lot of people feel a fear of missing out if they're not in the headset. So maybe you're not showing the whole experience, but they can see a multi-user interaction between two people that are playing a game, or they can be in a more introspective mode, seeing some of their brain data or having a meditative moment. So there's two sort of examples in one of my meetups at the Immersive Creators Meetup that people can be socializing in extended reality or having a solitary moment, and both can be very impactful. And the thing is, they don't have the same stigma, they don't have the same sort of barrier of putting on the headset because everything is already prepared for them. So I know that a lot of us have prepared headsets before, and there's always issues with Wi-Fi or tracking or something else. So when you go to an event and everything's done for you, I think that's the perfect scenario for someone new to try it on and to feel safe. Another great use case and a success story is hackathons. I recently ran a hackathon in Barcelona called the Sense AI Hack, and we had a lot of incredible developers coming from all different areas. So there were game developers, we had people coming from mobile, coming from desktop, and they all tried on extended reality with incredible enthusiasm, even though it's tech and development.
Exactly, and I think hackathons are a place where we're surrounded by people with lots of different skills who are curious to learn, and a lot of the things we've touched on in this presentation are ultimately shaped by us. So I think it's a really positive thing to get those people together.
Definitely. Another incredible use case is location-based virtual reality, and I really like this because it doesn't require controllers in a lot of cases, so you can just interact with the world with your hands. And this is from a local showroom in Barcelona of a company called Universe, and they do these experiences where you're allowed to free roam, walk around, and you feel like you're walking around in a really, really vast space, but what you're doing is essentially just drawing circles and you have no idea. So you're seeing all these really incredible visuals, and you can interact with other people through their avatars, and you can interact with the environment around you. So really, it takes away all of the sort of technical challenges and makes you focus on the experience itself. And I think when people aren't focused so much on the technical challenges, then they can actually feel in the moment, present, and appreciate the value of extended reality.
So I know we're running a bit over time, so we'll touch on this quickly. Accessibility is another important thing to consider. It's often kind of framed as an add-on or an afterthought, and I think accessibility can be one of the strongest drivers for adoption. A lot of people who benefit from accessibility features might not even identify themselves as needing them initially. So it could be something as simple as a seated experience, simple gestures, or multimodal ways of interacting.
Definitely, and this use case actually is from a company called Foretell Reality, where they host Alcoholics Anonymous sessions in virtual reality, peer support therapy sessions in virtual reality, and they have people coming together with whatever avatar they want so that they don't have to show themselves while they're sick or while they're struggling with something, and they can present themselves however they want. So we really have the time to tweak the accessibility options here so that everyone has a good experience.
Then just briefly, don't forget, be fearless. And by this we mean, trust us, we're not going to judge you. We've all been there. The evidence is here. It just takes someone to try it, to look a little bit silly, laugh it off, and then others start thinking, maybe that's not that bad, maybe it's okay. And I think as designers and developers, a lot of us are perfectionists, myself included, and so accepting that it might not be perfect the first time, it's an iterative process, and just having an experimental mindset is really important.
And one more thing is to share the journey. So I started posting on Instagram just because everyone around me was asking me what I was doing. So I've been trying to show what's inside the headset and how people can interact with the different use cases. And I encourage every single one of you to post online, to share your work, to keep the excitement going, because we're the ones who are building this, so we should be the ones talking about it. Thank you very much. We would love to have a few questions if we have the time, and feel free to connect with us here on LinkedIn. Really appreciate you coming out today.